Hello, my fellow veterans, and welcome to Veterans Advice Hub. My name is Bill Kelly, and before we begin, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Today, I want to talk to you about an item that kind of keeps coming up. People still send me questions about it, and that is the VA disability rating reevaluation exam. And scenario goes something like this. Maybe you have an older veteran who is fairly set, and they have a VA disability rating of a certain percentage, and they become to rely on that income, that compensation as part of their retirement later in life. They need that money. So, but they also have a VA disability where maybe their condition is getting worse. Maybe they'd be eligible for a higher rating, but they're afraid to submit the request for increase because they know that any request for an increase will automatically trigger a reevaluation exam where the VA could, they don't always necessarily, but they can look at any one of your individual items. And they're afraid that it will result in a reduction in their overall percentage, thereby reducing their compensation. Obviously then for a fixed income older veteran, that becomes an issue. So let's talk about the reevaluation. There's a couple of things that trigger them. Specifically, if you put in a new claim for a new item or you request an increase on an already rated service-connected disability, that's one. The second time is because the VA schedules what they call a recurring future evaluation, which is just a kind of a timetable. So some disability ratings automatically have a 2 to 5 year, hey, let's review this. And that typically might be for things that would get better. A couple of the examples in the literature and from my own personal experience. So for one, like arthritis, I have arthritis in the ankles. I had to do a reevaluation exam to ensure that the level of impact was still the same, that I met the criteria for the current rating. Not that I've ever heard of arthritis getting better, but so many veterans are rated for hepatitis-C. Well, in the last few years, they've made great progress in actually curing hepatitis-C. So, that's something that might get periodically reevaluated. Cancer, the improvements in medical technology and the cure rate for cancer, certain types of cancer certainly has improved over the years. So so that is another example, a real world example of something that a veteran might actually improve over time and therefore not be eligible for the same level of rating. So how do they determine the level of rating? That goes to the rating schedule, which is the VA's published listing of all of the individual items with the percentages and the criteria to meet each individual level, each individual percentage. I've got a couple of links in the write-up, one to the actual schedule itself, and two to a nonprofit website that really goes into detail on how these things get evaluated and what they're looking for. It's a great resource. And then, so there are three things that can happen as a result of one of these exams. That you can go in and you can demonstrate that you still meet all of the criteria and your rating will stay the same. You can demonstrate that you've improved and they may reduce your rating, or you may demonstrate that you actually have gotten worse over time and they might increase your rating. It all depends on the criteria. So if you get flagged for a reevaluation or you think you will trigger one because you want to put one in anyway, because you want to put in an increase for something that you've already been rated for, I would say don't be afraid to do it. With the caveat that do your research up front. Go see what the specific criteria are for each of the things that you've been rated for. Do you still meet those? Can you demonstrate that you still meet those? Are your doctor's appointments being followed up? Are you actually with ongoing treatment, or do you continue to complain about pain? Do you still show loss of mobility? Look at what the criteria says, look at your symptoms and your situation. Do you still meet those? And do you have documentation that shows that you still meet those things? And then be prepared for the questions. And remember, at the exam, you don't have to describe how you feel necessarily that day. You are allowed to describe how you feel on your worst day, when you're the most impacted. You talk about those things. I can't even walk up and down the stairs. I can't get out of the car. Sometimes I need help getting off the toilet. I mean, these are real issues that impact veterans day to day. And of course, as you know, the day of the exam, you're going to go in and you're going to feel great. And the doctor's going to start by asking, hey, how do you feel? How are your ankles? How are your knees? How's this issue? How's that issue? And you're going to submarine your whole case by saying, I feel great. So they write in there that the veteran shows improvement. And then you're suddenly not eligible for the same rating. So understand what the criteria are. Go in knowing what you are expected to be able to demonstrate. And I'm not saying be fraudulent. If you have improved, good for you. Remember, these ratings and this compensation is because of service-connected disabilities, issues that affect you for the rest of your life as a result of your service. So if you actually have an improvement, that actually is a good thing, even though your rating might get lowered. So anyway, that's the issue. It's making sure that your symptoms match up with the criteria for that specific rating. The other thing to do, I would say emphatically, is to document. Understand the process, review the VA's website, read and do research on how do I do an increase, what are the impacts of doing an increase, and then ultimately you have to decide. I don't want veterans to be afraid. I don't certainly want older veterans to live in fear of losing that income, that compensation that's so important for them if their condition is actually getting worse. So anyway, that's an issue that keeps coming up, and hopefully we can help veterans by just making sure they understand what the rules are. Take a look at some of the resources I've provided down below, and as always, post if you have any questions. All right, well, you guys have a great day. Thank you for your service.